Betrayal of the Celestial Lions. The Mannheim Gap Massacre. The sons of Rogal Dorn will ever be known to bear his stoic presence upon the battlefield. The Celestial Lions were no different. Hailing from their homeworld of Elysium, they unleashed their fury upon the enemies of mankind and brought retribution to those who sought to overthrow the Emperor's dream of unity. Their tale is one of sorrow, for their doom came not at the hands of the enemies of mankind, but to those who were considered friend. Warbus Ghazghkull Maruk Thraka unleashed his War upon the planet of Armageddon once more. Millions of Imperial Guard lay dead. Hive cities burned as the Orcs rampaged across multiple continents. The Celestial Lions, with many other chapters, answered the call for aid. They would bring the Orcs to heal and see the beast burn to ash. The Celestial Lions were entrusted to watch and defend over Hive Velonicus. As the days grew long, the Orcs reached the Hive City, and battle was among them. The Celestial Lions fought as bravely as any Son of Dawn, smiting the Xenos and breaking their attacks. Sadly, this is where their betrayal began. As the Orcs threw themselves upon the Hive and its defenders, the Celestial Lions began to take casualties, more so than they should. The intelligence they received about the Orcs' attacks and the counterattacks was inaccurate and led the chapter into countless ambushes against the enemy that saw even more of their number fall in battle. Even when the chapter gunships carried supplies or injured marines to and from the areas of conflict, Imperial air cannons turned their guns upon them, smashing them from the sky. Their fleet in orbit suffered the same fate. They were often given wrong orders, which led the ships into Orc-held space. Soon enough, the higher echelon of the Celestial Lions suspected foul play, and that someone or something was planning their chapter's downfall. Out of all the events that occurred on the surface of Armageddon, the event at the Mannheim Gap has been recorded into the anvils as the day the chapter was led to its doom. 4 entire battle companies were deployed to strike and purge Fodfang and his Gargant mob. The information they received stated that the Warlord was still constructing his Gargant army. The Celestial Lions had been tasked to wipe it out before they could march upon the Hive City walls. The Celestial Lions marched out across the barren wastes, their banner held high as they sought to slay the foe. Unknown to the chapter at this time, the Warlord and his Gargant mob were fully operational. Not only did the Orcs have the firepower to punish the Celestial Lions, they were waiting for them. Somehow, the Orc Warlord had received information about the upcoming Space Marine attack and readied his forces to rain Daka down upon them. As the Celestial Lions reached the ridge to launch their attack, they saw the Orc force waiting for them. Guns erupted with a hail of bullets as Celestial Lions were taken by surprise. In the eyes of this savage attack, the Celestial Lions, being ever stoic, launched themselves into the Orc ranks. They smashed, beat, broke and punished the Greenskins, but this was just the first stage of the Orc Warlord's cunning plan. Once the Space Marines had engaged the Orc force, they unleashed their trap. The Orcs had dug tunnels waiting for the Marines to pass over them. From these tunnels, floods of Orcs charged the Celestial Lions and cut off any hope of retreat. The Orcs bellowed in victory as they now brought their own punishment upon the Space Marines. The chapter began to die. Seeing the slaughter of his fellow brothers, Captain Valaka, who was at this time the last sole surviving captain of the Celestial Lions, sought combat with the Orc Warlord himself. The two battled, but the Orcs smashed him down and broke the captain's body upon the barren sands. With 4 companies of Celestial Lions wiped out, the Orcs turned their gaze to the last remnants of Space Marines. They launched their attack upon the Space Marine base camp. The Marines unleashed firepower and brought wave after wave of Orc down. Their victory did not last for long. Through the smoke and ash that had engulfed the battlefield, sniper fire began to hit the Celestial Lions from the mountain tops. Space Marines began to fall as snipers began to take them down. It was quickly noted that this fire was not of Orc origin. The burning holes that peppered the fallen brothers were that from Imperial Army issued long-last rifles. Even more devastating was who the snipers were aiming at. The apothecaries were the main target. These Marines were the lifeblood of the chapter. With them, the brothers who had fallen would be reborn into new initiates. Under the devastating rain of sniper fire, the Marines broke from their position, cutting through the Orc lines and making their way back to the Hive City to gather support. By the time the Celestial Lions made it back, only 96 of their brotherhood remained. All of their officers were dead and only one apothecary remained standing. But as the day pushed on, they found their last surviving apothecary slumped next to a rhino with a lasgun shot through one of his eye lenses. In the face of destruction, they called for aid. In answer to their request, Chaplain Grimaldis of the Black Templars, who was tasked to protect Hive Hellsreach, answered his fellow Sons of Dawn. Grimaldis had followed the battles of the Celestial Lions and had come to the same decision. They had been led to their doom and betrayed by an unknown source. With all their senior officers dead, command of the Celestial Lions fell to Sergeant Debaku. Debaku asked Grimaldis to perform the last rites upon his chapter, for when the sun rose, they would march back to the Mannheim Gap to fight and die alongside their fallen brothers. Grimaldis believed that honour could still be salvaged for the Celestial Lions. If they could march back and conquer the Orc force, then the chapter had the right to live on. Grimaldis rallied the defenders of Hell's Reach and marched with the Celestial Lions. The two forces met upon the ash-soaked sands and clashed with the Orcs. The Orcs hurled themselves at the Imperial lines. The battle was long and savage, but by the time the Orcs were pushed back and broken, the might of the Imperial Guard reinforcements were victorious. Nearly all the Celestial Lions had been slain. Only Sergeant Debaku and a few still remained standing. It was in this hour that High Marshal Helbrecht himself descended upon the planet's surface and forced Sergeant Debaku to take the oath of the Chapter Master. Helbrecht even gifted the newly announced Chapter Master of the Celestial Lions a suit of ancient power armour that still bore the iconography of their father legion, the Imperial Fists. Under the protection of Grimaldis and the Black Templars, the Celestial Lions were able to leave the system and head to their homeworld of Elysium. There they would regather their strength and birth new sons to the chapter. Unbeknown to them, the Great Rift was ready to be hurled across the galaxy, and their tale still had more suffering to come.